Hello everyone, my name is Matt Callahan. I am Economic Regeneration Manager for Swansea Council, part of the Business Swansea team. And today we're covering a briefing on the Business Launchpad Bursary. Through the Business Swansea team, we cover a range of services, including the administration and delivery of a range of business grants, of which this is one, plus a range of wider business support programs, including briefing, networking, workshops. There's a wide range of support that's available, but today we're focusing on the brand new Launchpad Bursary. So a bit of background in terms of the scheme itself. Say this is a brand new scheme, nothing has been like this has been offered up until now, and it's part of a scheme called the Economic Growth Fund, and this is direct funding through Swansea Council. So I say it's a brand new programme. We've not delivered anything like this before. It's even different to the pre-start grant, which has been in place for the last 3 to 4 years or so. So first of all, what's the purpose? So the purpose of the bursary is to give local entrepreneurs, local residents of Swansea, the chance to explore and trial their business idea before going ahead and formally setting up any would-be company. So it's that stage before setting up the pre-start company. And how do we do this? Well, it's by supporting a period of real-world test trading. The bursary scheme helps individuals shape their offer, identify and gauge what level of customer interest there may be, but also to build confidence in you as an individual, say without taking on that formal step, and perhaps more importantly, undertaking that significant financial risk of setting up a company in its formal guise. So we've offered the pre-start grant for a number of years now. This is one stage ahead of that. So this is like a pre-start grant. The pre-start grant itself requires you to go ahead and formally register that business with Companies House or with HMRC. But this is just one step back for that and doesn't require that formal registration. It is, as it says, an opportunity to test trade that particular business idea that you may have. So think of it as a pre-start grant, if you like. So we get asked a range of questions about our various funding programs, one of which really is how much funding is available. And the maximum intervention, the maximum award for this particular business bursary is up to £1,000. And there is a minimum of £250 just from an admin point of view from our side of things. But the maximum award is £1,000. Now, that's not to say that because you're applying for this, you've got to apply for all of that £1,000. If you're working through what you want to fund as this and it comes in at less than £1,000, no issue with that at all. You apply for as much funding as you believe that you need. But anything beyond that £1,000 wouldn't be something that we could fund, and that maximum level is the £1,000 as it says. Another reason this is different to anything we funded up until now is that this bursary is 100% grant funded. That's to say that there is no match funding or no contribution from you as an applicant whatsoever. So everything up to that maximum of £1,000 is entirely grant funded and require no contribution from yourself. Obviously, anything above that £1,000 would need to be funding that you would need to fund yourself as an individual. So the other area that we get asked about frequently is what is eligible under this scheme. And there's a couple of areas, particularly thinking back to the pre-start grant, where we get asked for funding for particular areas or particular topics. The first of which could be equipment or tools. So think about what equipment and what tools you may need to undertake that test trading. So you may need, for example, if you're setting up a market stall, things just to allow you to literally physically take that market stall and allow you to undertake that test trading. The other thing which we commonly get asked for is that initial stock. So again, if you're going out and test trading your idea at a market stall, the initial stock that you would need to be able to equip yourself to go out and take that test trading into the real world. Now, the caveat to this is that any line of expenditure must be above £25 per line of expenditure. So just think about that initial stock and make sure it is worth more than that £25 per line of expenditure. I mentioned market stalls as well. We could fund your pitch fees, or if you're taking on temporary trading space, we can fund that as well. If you're looking towards a market but aren't sure where the local markets are, we do have a list of markets within the Swansea area. So upon application, if that's something you're interested in finding out more about, ask us for that list and we can let you know where those markets are located in and around Swansea, so you can identify the area most appropriate for you to undertake that test trading activity. And the final thing, is that we can also fund marketing and promotion covering your test trade period. And that last bit there is quite important. It is strictly covering this test trade period. So for those initial few weeks, month or so, when you're undertaking that test trade period, we understand that if you're going to go out there, you might want to make people aware that you're going to be in a certain place at a certain time. And that may incur some small expense. We can fund that as long as it only covers that test trading period, which is going to be the focus of your application. So covered what is eligible, also worth covering what is not eligible. So because this is a grant focused specifically on a test trading period, we cannot fund expenditure towards assets or equipment with significant longer lasting value than the test trade period itself. So a couple of things that spring to mind in terms of examples. The first of which could be a laptop. That would obviously have a significant use above and beyond that test trading period, or perhaps a smartphone. Understand how they may be needed for you to operate, but they're going to have a life beyond that test trading period, and are going to have a value beyond that. So we could not fund those assets that are going to have a life in use beyond that test trading period. So we couldn't fund those. We also cannot fund businesses that are going to be carrying out that test trading period solely online. If you want to go out, test trade in person and have an online presence as well, absolutely fine. But one of the things that we cannot fund is businesses that are doing that test trading solely online. That wouldn't be eligible under this scheme. And the other thing is that we cannot fund expenditure already incurred. So anything that you've bought or purchased before the grant application is approved would not be subject to something that we could fund. It would only be expenditure incurred after that grant has been through the process, which I'll cover in a moment, been approved, and it would need to post-date that approval date. So scheme requirements in terms of sort of the general overview of things that you must think about before you apply for this bursary. The business or the individual, more specifically, must be based within the Swansea Council area. This is Swansea Council money designed to benefit residents of Swansea itself. So therefore, if you're applying for this fund, you must yourself be based within that Swansea Council area. You must not already be trading. So this is that's I mentioned it before, that pre-start. So it cannot be a business or enterprise that is already trading. And we're also not able to fund any individual that is already operating another business, be it in Swansea or elsewhere. This scheme is designed to support brand new, first-time would-be entrepreneurs with a new business idea. So we can't fund businesses already trading or those already operating a separate enterprise elsewhere. There's a few things that you must provide as an applicant. Obviously, the application form itself, but there's a page within that application form that focuses on what your ask is going to be. In other words, what you're looking to buy through this grant scheme. For every line of expenditure that you list upon that application form, you must provide a minimum of 2 evidence quotes, of which, if approved, will only be able to pay the lowest. What do we mean by evidence? It must be, for example, a supplier's quote, a website screen grab, so that we can see the store that you're looking to purchase this online from. We basically need to see what the price is and where you're looking to purchase that particular item or items from. Also a requirement that with the application form, you require at least 2 forms of ID, one of which must be photographic. So typically that would be a driving license, a passport. And we also need to see a form of ID that evidences your address, and that must match the address based upon the details in the application form as well. So 2 forms of ID. And if your test trading is going to be involve you working with children or vulnerable adults, you must also include a safeguarding policy. That sounds a little bit intimidating, a little bit scary, but it doesn't need to. We do provide a template within the application form to allow you to complete that without too much difficulty. And because this is Welsh Government funded, there's also 2 or 3 questions within the form around your use of the Welsh language. Again, don't stress too much about that if you're not fluent in Welsh. We're not going to be asking you to become fluent. We're not going to be asking you to complete a Duolingo course. It's just basically ensuring that you are making some effort towards recognition of that Welsh language. There's a free to access service through through Business Wales called Hello Blod, and that will allow you to translate anything that you need to into the Welsh language. So normally we just recommend that people reference that any Welsh translation that needs to be undertaken, we can use the free Business Wales service of Hello Blod to undertake that. So nothing to worry about. Other scheme requirements. Because this, I say, is a scheme designed to support people before they take that step of going into business. All applicants must undertake, and this is mandatory, a 2-day intro to self-employment course. So because it's 2 days, we can cover quite a lot of ground within that workshop. So it would cover all the elements that you typically find within a business plan. So who's your target market, what risks may be associated, what's your marketing plan, a whole range of things that you would normally include within a business plan. It would also get you thinking about some of the financial forecasting. Think about your cash flow, what your pricing points would be, income versus expenditure, all those sort of elements. We can cover that level of detail within that mandatory 2-day Intro to Self-Employment course. These run on a fairly regular basis, so as and when you apply, we'll make you aware of when these workshops are taking place, so you can get yourself booked onto one of those courses. When you come to submit your final claim, you will also need to provide a business plan and a financial forecast. Now, with the pre-start grant, this is a requirement at the point at which you submit the application in the very first instance. This one is a slightly different way of doing it, in so much as you provide that business plan and that financial forecast at the end of the claim process. So not when you submit, but at the end when you come to submit your claim. By that time, of course, you will have attended your Intro to Self-Employment course, and you'll be able to hopefully provide a competent business plan and financial forecast that just allows us to, as funders, have some reassurance that you've thought of all those things that I've mentioned around how your business in reality would work if you were to take it to that next step and it to become more than just an idea, but take that next step and become a bit more of a reality. If you were approved for a grant, having gone through the process, you would then have 2 months to complete the claim. And I'll come on to talk about in just a moment what that claim process would involve. So the application process itself, it's a fairly basic first step, is that you jot us an email, which I'll show you at the end. Jot us an email just requesting an application form, and we will then send you the application form back to you. And it'll just be a case of you then working through the application form, answering all the questions on that, sending it back to us once it's been complete, with the attached documents that I mentioned just a moment ago. Part of this scheme, again, because it's Swansea Council funded, we cannot allow any applicants to progress that basically owe Swansea Council money. That would include council tax. So part of the process when they get the application back from you is that we will check with our council tax just to ensure that there are no arrears on that council tax account. If there are, sadly, we wouldn't be able to progress the application. So you send the application form back to us. Initially, that application would be assessed and evaluated by a council officer, and then it would move forward to a grant panel where that formal decision would be taken. When that initial assessment is being undertaken by the council officer, please be ready to respond to any queries that they may have. It may be something they're not quite sure of in terms of the detail that you've submitted. It may be a query on the expenditure. Just be ready to respond to those queries as quickly as you can, because any delay in doing so could just slow up the progress of the application form itself until it gets to that panel. It's difficult to provide timescales exactly on how long this would take. The guidance that we normally try to provide to people is between 2 to 4 weeks from the point that the application is received through to you getting a formal decision from our grant panel. There can be a bit of variation in that. The more up and together and complete the application is, the faster you'll get to panel, and therefore likely to be nearer towards the 2 weeks. The further points of clarification that we need from you, anything missing from the application, and it's more likely to be towards the longer end of that period in there. But 2 to 4 weeks is a sort of fairly good rule of thumb in terms of when we intend to get a decision to you, so not too long to wait. And as I said before, if approved, you would then have 2 months to complete your claim and get all that detail back to us. So the claim process itself, maybe something quite important to highlight from the outset is that grant claims can only be paid retrospectively. So that's to say that if approved, that would effectively then give you the green light to go ahead and incur the expenditure associated with that application. So you go ahead, incur the expenditure, and then once you've got evidence of that expenditure, you send that back to us, and then we can issue you the appropriate level of funding for that expenditure which you've incurred. We appreciate that potentially with £1,000 worth of expenditure to your name, it may be difficult from a cash flow perspective to undertake all of that in one go. So just to ease that cash flow, we can do stage payments, 2 or 3 in most cases. So maybe do, I don't know, £250 worth of expenditure, submit the claim, get the money back, do the next 250, submit the claim, get the money back, just to ease those cash flow concerns a little bit, I guess, in terms of how you would submit that. But that claim being paid retrospectively is a really important point. We cannot issue that £1,000 until we've seen evidence that expenditure has been incurred by yourself. So what would an applicant be required to provide to us when they submit their claim in order for us to be able to pay that grant funding back to you? 2 or 3 things which we can run through individually here. The first of which is receipts or paid invoices. When you submit the application form, the application form itself will ask you what the item is, where you're looking to buy it, and how much that is. We would need those receipts and paid invoices to match in all of those respects. So send us back the invoices for the individual items that you're looking to buy. Send us your bank statement or credit card, which must be in your name. And again, we'd need that bank statement to match the receipts of those 2 payments, align with each other, and we can see that you've made the purchase and for how much. And then when we approve your grant, we would issue you with a claim form and an offer letter. You would need to sign both of those and send them back with your claim. So in summary then, there are 3 things that we need from you: receipts or paid invoices, the bank or credit card statements. These must match the receipts or paid invoices, and the claim form and offer letter, both of which must be signed. If you're undertaking test trading, which of course you would be, we would also need to see evidence of that test trading having taken place. So that might just be a receipt from a market stall, an invoice from a test trading space that you've undertaken. Just some evidence that the test trading that you've declared is taking place has taken place, and we can see that when you submit your claim back to us. So a few top tips. You'll see when you get the application form, there are a number of questions just about what you're going to be doing and why you're going to be doing it. Think carefully about that because there's no business plan or cash flow. We will judge the application solely on the information that you provide through the application form itself. So firstly, set out clearly what your idea is on why you think this warrants further test trading. Explain your rationale for the test trading. Where are you going to be undertaking this, and why have you chosen that location? And then also, what do you hope to understand from this process? What lessons are you going to learn? What lessons do you think this test trading process is going to teach you that you didn't know before you started that test trading process itself? So just think about what you're going to be doing, why you're going to be doing it, and what you believe you're going to be learning from having completed that process. Think about the journey that you're going to go on from the start to the finish, and how you're going to end up in a better place at the end of it than you were at the start of it. I mentioned a few times the pre-start grant. Of course, if this test trade went really, really well, and you identified from this that actually there really is a business idea in this, we could then progress you to the pre-start grant to fully establish the business. So having gone through the business bursary, it doesn't exclude you. In fact, we would encourage you, if it was successful, to take that next step and access the pre-start grant, which offers additional funding on top of this pre-start funding, which is just £1,000. So I mentioned earlier the email address. There it is, startupgrant@swansea.gov.uk. When you request the application form, use that email address just to express that you're interested in the business bursary and that you would like an application form, and then we can get that out straight to you. When you're working through the application form, use that email address to submit any queries to us regarding eligibility, suitability, any queries you have at all. Please do contact us, because it's far easier for us to address and answer those questions ahead of you submitting than us having to go back after submission and try and tackle it afterwards. So anything you're not sure about, please do contact us via that email address. We can set up a separate call if you prefer, but that email address is the first point of contact. As part of this, we're also going to be running a series of regular surgeries and workshops, which you can come to and talk to us on a one-to-one in-person event. So look out for those via the business e-newsletter, via our social media feeds. And it's a chance for us to sit down at a desk and us to work through the application form itself, any difficulties you may be facing. And then also I would say, if you're watching this video, do keep an eye on swansea.gov.uk/business funding for scheme updates. At the time of recording, we're about to launch this scheme, but obviously there is a finite amount of money available. So do just check that this funding is still available, and just check any changes that there may have been in that process since we launched this scheme and when this video was recorded. But the key point is just keep that line of communication open to us throughout the process. So there we are. That concludes the short briefing on the business bursary. Hopefully that's given you the information that you need to go ahead and complete the application. We look forward to receiving applications from you in the upcoming future, and hopefully allow you to access some funding to undertake that test trade period. So thank you for your attention. All the best. Thanks. Bye now.